15 minutes or less. I'm gonna try and cover as many of the things in the ecosystem in terms of the kind of pulse chain. I might I might miss some things, like maybe even if, maybe we'll have like 5 minutes at the end, and maybe Max can come back on, and maybe I missed something, maybe I didn't. But in terms of what I would start with, and I'm gonna share my screen here as well. Um, but I would always point people to gopulse.com, and I think there's a lot of other sites as well. And I think this is one of the greatest things about Pulse Chain as well, is we have things like pulsecoinlist.com, and then we have things like gopulse.com, and then I think there's even more like emerging ones, like for example, I'll name PLS Folio. It has been a kind of a new one that I've seen emerging as well. But in terms of Pulse Chain in 15 minutes or less, I think I would start on Go Pulse, and I would just kind of take a look at the bridge stats here to even start. So like you can kind of see how much value right over here is bridged into Pulse Chain. Currently $81 million, and you can see the distribution of these like bridged in assets. Like majority of a lot of these tokens are stable coins, right? Or even Bitcoins here, a lot of Ethereum, and then a lot of eHex as well has been bridged into Pulse Chain. So like there is a lot of like kind of value backing everything on the chain. So like I would say probably one of the main ways in and out of the chain, especially if you're trying to move perhaps like larger amount of funds, is through that main bridge avenue. And yeah, you can see people have essentially backed the chain with $81 million as of right now. And I want to like put this in perspective of where Pulse Chain is right now relative to, even if you look at like the macro markets with like Bitcoin and stuff. Pulse Chain, relatively speaking, is at the lows or near the lows, right? You have even things like Bitcoin looking like they're about to get thrown into a bull market. We know that we have these kind of like massive whales coming into the, I'm saying massive whales, but and there's, I think we know that there's some large addresses tied to even like the Pulse Chain stack and like different OA wallets and stuff, and like they're usually somewhat active coming in and out of the ecosystem. And kind of the point is like we're at the lows here, $81 million, and like the chain is just kind of getting started, just kind of I would say just kind of growing here. So that I would say is extremely bullish. Like even if you go look at a lot of the other chains, like, and I think last time I was looking at some of these stats, and it might be a little bit different now, but even PulseX was within the top 10 of like some of the most liquid dexes in all of crypto. Now this might be a little bit different now that we've had some liquidity changes on the chain, in terms of like people that like look, it looks like a lot of the value still on chain, as you can see here, but it's just not as much as sitting in PulseX anymore, which we can also, I think we'll also get into moon math and we'll do like a little bit of moon math and stuff. Just because now that we're talking about low liquidity and all that type of stuff, like essentially the theory is that when you have, or the theory is that Richard kind of prompted the people to lower the liquidity on some of the different trading pairs. And what this causes is essentially an environment where it's easier for price to move up, and it's also easier for price to move down. But we've done these different calculations throughout the community for like quite a while now, in terms of looking at if X amount of dollars was injected into the ecosystem, how much would the price theoretically rise, right? And this is most likely looking at like your X times Y equals K sort of constant product formula that these dexes and like particularly PulseX V2 and V1 use to essentially determine price on the different for the different pairs and on the exchange and stuff. But here we have the reserve. Currently it's $310 million, and like that's just given the current ETH price. So what it's doing here is, I guess it's doing we'll do an even split between Hex, Incentive, Pulse, and PulseX, in terms of like if we were to see this theoretical reserve come inside of the PulseChain ecosystem, what sort of what sort of PNL, I guess, or like what sort of price appreciation would you see or not? I think I just killed that tab for some reason, but here we click the button. I think it, yeah, we'll take a second here to calculate, but if you guys have been in the ecosystem for a while, you might remember the numbers in terms of these values were likely a lot lower than what you're seeing here now. Like they were probably before in the range of about a 200 to 1000x, maybe 2000x at the kind of top end of that range. But now you can see with this kind of lower liquidity environment, although like I said, we still have all these stables backing the chain, we have this lower liquidity environment on the decentralized exchange itself, which can cause essentially more volatile price action. So you can see here if this reserve at the current price it's at now, right? So we're assuming Ethereum's kind of down bad here. You could see the type of prices we'd get for PLS, 5 cents, Hex, $45, right? It's very close to like, I think the $55.55. That would be, what is that? Well, a million X or something like that. I think if you got to $55.55, that'd be about a million X for Hex. So like maybe we see that would be pretty crazy, but maybe we see something like that. Even here for PLSX is like almost shooting almost 10 cents there. It's given out a price target for PLSX, and then here look at incentive, $7,000 for INC, and this could partially even be because now like there's INC is always inflating, right? So like maybe if we assume like even the market cap of this value stays the same, like if there's more circulating tokens, like maybe the price is a little bit less in the future and stuff, but that's still like the amount of X's that you might see could be quite extraordinary, right? And then even if like, for example, here, we'll say Ethereum, I have no idea what Ethereum's going to get to, but we'll say Ethereum gets to $7,000 and we have the reserve at, maybe we'll do moon math, might as well just do the moon math. That might be too much, but yeah, we'll say ETH is at $14,500. And keep in mind, like, this isn't financial advice. I'm not saying ETH is hitting this or anything like that. But it's just looking at like kind of the numbers of like kind of what we could theorize potentially happening, right? So ETH at $14,000, the reserve here, and again, if you're not entirely sure what the reserve is, they do have a tooltip here, and essentially a part of the sacrifice. And people theorize that it's going to be used to potentially buy back some of these tokens and stuff. But yeah, if I calculate an injection of this almost $2.5 billion reserve, you could see how many X's these tokens would do, right? And like even this is like quite extraordinary, right? And you can kind of get the sense of like the chain doesn't need to do this many X's, but kind of the point is like it can be supported to that like kind of extent, right? If there was a $2.5 billion whale that wanted to kind of support the price, like you could probably absorb and pump these prices like quite substantially. So also we'll see, I think there's some cool other stuff on this site, but oh yeah, you can see even the steps here. Well, that's pretty cool. So I don't want to go. I don't want to like not waste time, but I don't want to use up all the time watching this go. But I think it's pretty cool. You can kind of get the point of like how this liquidity injection would happen, and then this is honestly really cool. But we'll see if I'm not even entirely sure how to configure. Oh yeah, the sell pressure here. Let's turn it up a little bit. Let's say 50% sell pressure. Let's do a little bit or let's do a little bit less for Hex, and then maybe people sell PLS more. And I'm just kind of throwing random stuff out there. And maybe we'll do a high one for Ink just because I know people are like earning it, but not to the same extent as they were before, right? Like we had a little bit of a reduction in the farms, but yeah, let's do some of the sell pressure here. We'll see what happens. I think this is a really cool calculator, but oh, Yeah, even with some sells here, you can see like the prices are still quite extraordinary, and like even the visualizer, I'm sure if you watch this play out, it would probably like you'd probably watch the price kind of pump slower over time. But that's still like I don't know. I would say it's extremely cool to sort of see how things could play out in terms of if we saw these like kind of massive liquidity injections here. But yeah, you can see here. Keep in mind of like when we were talking about having this lower liquidity environment on PulseChain. So before PLS stables, this LP was closer to maybe $60 million, $50 million, $40 million, $30 million, like across bid and ask added together. And again, it would sort of depend on the day and stuff like that. But you can sort of see it's like liquidity is a lot lower, which gives us like a lot of a lot more of a kind of an easier time to kind of have some price appreciation. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool in terms of like PLS and stuff. And we've always talked about Hart's law and like how these things kind of play out with each other in terms of if Ethereum's not doing so well, it looks like PLS has not been doing so well. And when Ethereum's doing extremely well, PLS will do extremely well. And then on top of that, if we get some liquidity injection from Ethereum coming across the bridge into the chain, like I think you're going to see like I think it's possible you're going to see like some insane gains, right? Not financial advice or anything, of course, but even here, like talking about like the validators and stuff of like PulseChain, you could I honestly wouldn't be surprised. I think this map is probably like I actually think maybe Max knows more about it, but I do think this is like somewhat of an actual globe of where the validators actually are. But you can sort of see how everyone's around the world and stuff. Even North America looks like got some dudes in Alaska and Canada here. U.S. There's like nodes all over the U.S. here. Even it looks like in Mexico a little bit. South America. Look at this, like all over the world, right? It's like nodes in Africa. Africa looks like, and all over Europe and stuff. All over. Is that like Russia and Ukraine and China and stuff? Like all over the world. So I would say, yeah, um, it might not be, might not be the most decentralized chain in the entire world, but I would definitely say it's probably one of the more decentralized chains in probably in the entire world, given like the community support behind it, and just you can kind of see here even kind of the validator spread across the entire world, right? Like it's not yeah, I don't think it's just one person in their castle running a bunch of validators. So for what it's worth, I think there is a ton of community support behind this chain and stuff. But even here you can see in terms of the gas, 72x cheaper than Ethereum, 756 times cheaper than Bitcoin. You can see some of these other metrics as well. I'm gonna speed run this last little bit here. I don't know how much time I have left, Max, but yeah, if you're looking to get a position though, in our ecosystem, we do like kind of quantify everything in these different what do you call them? Sea creature positions, sea creature leagues. So you have like a Poseidon owns 10% of the supply, a whale owns 1%, a shark owns 0.1, a dolphin owns 0.01, and then so on and so on and so on. But yeah, if you were looking to allocate into any of the Pulse Chain ecosystem, you can sort of get a sense of like how much you would need for like let's say a dolphin position. You can see here in incentives only $6,000 compared to a dolphin in Pulse Chain's 43,000, a dolphin in PulseX is 40,000, and a dolphin in Hex is 52,000. So if you like RH coins and you like getting like kind of a significant position, right? You could get a dolphin, but I think with something like incentive, this one's probably something you want to farm. So you can kind of keep that dolphin position going and sort of compound it for yourself as well. But I think that's for another maybe another stream and stuff. But here real quick, I don't know how much time I have left. I might wrap up here. Shortly, but I have a few more metrics to cover. In terms of like the liquidity on chain, you can see there's still over $100 million on PulseX alone, V1 and V2. You can see even across some of the other exchanges like Fox, there's $3 million on, and then yeah, 9mm, there's another 3 million, 9inch, 2.5 million. So yeah, there's liquidity across like few, like mostly PulseX, but then a few major dexes as well. There's like maybe $10 million combined there, for like different tokens and stuff, right? So like, kind of the point is, it's like $80 million of stables, $100 million in the dex, or like 80 million dollars in the bridge, $100 million on the dex, and there's, I don't know, there's plenty of kind of value back in the whole kind of ecosystem and stuff. But
value on the ecosystem, you say? What kind of value are we talking about here? We got the bridge, we got the community. We got, how's the volume and everything looking too? Like, what I guess what is the story for PulseChain? What is the state of things right now? Maybe that's something we could wrap up on.
that's a good point, and I think you brought up the volume. I think volume is a good metric to take a look at, because even if you look at something like, or even trades as well, if you look at something like this, even compared to like the price chart, these metrics aren't like, if the chain was dead, if no one was using the chain, you'd probably see the volume just forever and always go down into the right. But you can actually see, I think it's been making new floors, like even here, kind of made a new higher floor here, a little bit of a higher floor here in like the $20 million region. But you can see like there's days here where we're doing on PulseChain $100 million of volume in a day, $120 million of volume in a day. And I think there is like the banter in the community of like Cardano and stuff, and like that whole community, and like they do like, can't remember how much volume max, you might be able to quote the number, but it was like significantly less than PulseChain. And I think you had like Charles like poking fun at us, but even here you see the transactions. Like I think if anything, like you can see people, if they are using the chain for what it's for, right? Doing transactions, right? And cheaper version of Ethereum, faster version of Ethereum. And yeah, I mean, you can clearly see it here. Is like people are using it to actually transact on, whether or not like they're doing like tons and tons and tons of volume. Is like not every single day, but there has been, like you can see, like there has been big days of big volume on this chain and stuff. So yeah.
What is the PulseChain story for people who, just coming in and maybe watching for the first time? They're like, you know what, I have Ethereum, I got some Solana coins, whatever. Like, why would I go to the PulseChain?
That's a good question, and the way I would answer that is because, like, I would say look at how Hex performed in the sort of last cycle in terms of being I would say one of the most gate kept, one of the top hated, and one of the most speculative investments, and it kind of performed as also one of the top assets for that cycle. So nothing's guaranteed for PulseChain or anything like that, but what I would say is that you're not in anything mainstream yet, right? If you're, let's say, moving from Solana into something like PulseChain, everyone's heard of Solana. I feel like there's a lot of like saturations, even ultra competitive, like probably people like on Solana who are probably ultra competitive trying to trade against you and whatnot, where I think PulseChain, maybe you have some of that, but not to that same sort of extent. And you get the still bonuses of, you have the speculative chain, you have the price appreciation potential, and you have like kind of Richard Hart as the founder, which I think is a huge bonus as well. So
I think it's a highly underrated bonus. I think that's a point that it's a lot of people want to distance themselves from RH, or they're like, the chain would be better without him, or whatever. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that his brand is going to have a revival. I think his brand is pretty solid in the community already with a lot of people. I said, I spoke many times before on a lot of different RH stuff, and I'm Maxi for his ideals and all this stuff too. And I think when he comes back, when ready, and all that stuff, that his brand will only grow even further. I mean, he's literally someone who went from almost no Twitter following to a huge one, almost no YouTube presence, to crushing all the haters, to bring your heroes here to die. And I think glory, in my opinion, includes him coming back and claiming it in that way. So I think his brand will be exponential rise, and maybe pick up where it left off a couple years ago or so.